Good morning. Last time we talked about the difference between planned and unplanned expenditure. Today we are going to talk about determining equilibrium real GDP and what are the factors that affect equilibrium level of real GDP. How do we calculate the equilibrium level of real GDP? As we said last time, that equilibrium means that planned expenditure is equivalent to income. So we can write the equilibrium equation as Y equals AB, which is autonomous planned expenditure, plus CY, which is induced consumption. So this is autonomous planned expenditure, and this is induced consumption. So once again, we said that equilibrium means Y, which is income, is equivalent to planned expenditure. Planned expenditure consists of two main components, autonomous expenditure and induced consumption. So we can write the equation as Y, which is income, equals autonomous expenditure plus induced expenditure. Now we can rewrite the equation and subtract CY from both sides. So we can write it as Y minus CY equals AB. Take Y as a common factor, so it's 1 minus CY equals AB. 1 minus C is small s, which is marginal propensity to save. So we can write it as small sy equals AB. And this is induced savings. Sy is induced savings. Induced saving is the portion of saving that responds to changes in income, just like induced consumption is the portion of consumption that responds to change in saving. This is the change in income. This is the same portion of savings that responds to changes in income. Now we can write the equation as Y equals AB over S, or 1 over S AB. So this is the equilibrium level of real GDP, or how to calculate the equilibrium level of real GDP. What about 1 over S? 1 over S is known as the multiplier. What's meant by multiplier? Multiplier means magnification. If there is a change in one of the factors that affect planned expenditure, how this is going to be reflected on the equilibrium level in the economy. So this is the multiplier. Multiplier can be calculated as, let's take an initial situation where Y node equals AB node divided by S, and the new situation where Y1 equals AB1 over S. Now we would like to find the change or subtract new minus old. So change in Y equals a change in AB over S. So we can define multiplier as which is 1 over S, or change in Y over change in AB is the ratio of the change in output to the change in autonomous planned spending. That causes it. It's also equivalent to 1 divided by marginal propensity to save. So example for the multiplier. Suppose that a firm would like to increase production or to increase its production. As a result, they are going to hire more workers, or they are going to increase number of hours employed by the worker. As a result, they have to pay for these workers 4 billion extra money. These 4 billion are considered to be income for the workers. This income will be used in order to buy goods and services or to spend. But they are not going to use the whole portion of the increase or the change in income, just a percentage equivalent to the marginal propensity to consume. So let's assume that marginal propensity to consume is 0.75. So the amount of income that will be used or spent in consumption will be 0.75 multiplied by 4, which is 3 billion. This additional money spent will raise production or raise output by 3 billion. That can be used in another round. That can be used in order to hire more workers or to increase number of hours. So you are going to pay money for the workers. Income will increase, consumption will increase, etc. So we have a number of rounds. This is just if we are going to talk about consumers. What about if this money can be spent to pay taxes for the government, and the government is going to use this money in order to make any public investments or public spending for any products, etc. So in order to identify by how much real GDP or total income will change as a result of change in income by 4 million, this will be calculated as total change in income, which is a change in Y, is equivalent to 1 over small s multiplied by the initial change in income, which is 4 million. Small s equals, as we know that MBC plus MBS equal 1, or in other words, that consumers are going to divide their income between consumption and savings. If you know that MBC is 0.75 and this is 1, so you can find the value of MBS as 0.25. So now we can substitute in the equation as delta Y equals 1 over 0.25 multiplied by 4, so it is 16. So the initial change in income by 4 billion will cause an increase in the whole income of the economy by 16 billion. This is the idea of the multiplier. This means that if one of the components of planned expenditure increase by any number, total income will increase by an amount greater than this number by the value of the multiplier, will be multiplied by this multiplier in order to increase. What are the sources of shifts in planned expenditure or planned spending? As we said, that equilibrium level is calculated as autonomous plans multiplied by the multiplier. So what are the factors that affect planned spending? We can write it in the form of equation. A change in autonomous planned expenditure is equivalent to a change in autonomous consumption minus small c, a change in taxes or autonomous tax revenue, plus a change in planned investments, plus a change in government expenditure, plus change in net exports. So these are the 5 main causes of changes in autonomous planned expenditure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if autonomous consumption increase by $1, autonomous planned expenditure increase by $1, and this will be reflected in the total income by more than $1. Okay, number 2. So they are moving in the same direction. If autonomous tax revenue increase by $1, autonomous planned expenditure will decrease by $1. So they are moving in opposite direction. Decrease by amount equivalent to marginal propensity to consume multiplied by $1. And later on we are going to explain the idea of tax multiplier in order to know why it is marginal propensity to consume multiplied by the change in tax revenue. Okay. Number 3, if there is an increase in investment, planned investment by $1, autonomous planned expenditure will increase by $1, moving in the same direction. Number 4, G increased by $1, the same with respect to AB, increased by $1. And finally, a change in net exports increased by $1, AB increased by $1. So all of them except taxes, if autonomous consumption or planned investment or government expenditure or net exports increase by 1 unit, or $1. Aggregate autonomous planned expenditure will increase by $1, and vice versa. With respect to autonomous tax revenue, if there is a change in autonomous tax revenue by $1, autonomous planned expenditure will move in opposite direction by marginal propensity to consume multiplied by the change, multiplied by the additional amounts. Okay. These factors will cause a shift to the planned expenditure line. As we said before, this is real income, and here is planned expenditure, 45-degree line, and this is planned expenditure. If autonomous consumption, government expenditure, planned investment, net exports increase, or tax revenue decrease, planned expenditure line will shift upward. And we are going to have a new equilibrium point. And as you can notice, this is the change in any one of the 5 factors that we have mentioned. And this is the change in real income. This change is much more higher than this change. And this is due to the multiplier effect. Government policies. Sometimes the government intervenes in the market in order to achieve equilibrium or to reach a specific level of real GDP. So what are the government policies that can be used, and what are the tools used by each of these policies? We have 2 main policies, or we are going to talk about 2 main policies. Number 1, fiscal policy. Number 2, monetary policy. There are 2 main tools used by the fiscal policy. They are taxes or government expenditure. While with respect to monetary policy, there is one main tool that can be used, which is interest rate. Let's start with the first policy, which is a fiscal policy. If the government would like to use or to increase G or decrease D, this is known as expansionary fiscal policy. So what's expansionary fiscal policy? Let's start with a situation where desirable level of income is 8,000 and autonomous planned expenditure is 1,500. Real income is 6,000. So the actual is 6,000, but the desired level is 8,000. So this is unsatisfactory as there is a gap of about 2,000. At the real GDP is less than the desired level by about 2,000. So how fiscal policy can be used in order to correct for this situation? The government, as we said, can use any of two different tools, either increase government expenditure or decrease autonomous tax revenue. So as we said, we have to increase G or decrease T, but by how much? In order to be able to answer this question, we have to find the value of the multiplier first. Before any change, this is real GDP, which is equivalent to, returning back to our equation, Y equals 1 over S AB. So 6,000 equals 1 over S, which is the multiplier, multiplied by AB, which is 1,500. So from this, we can find that 1 over S is equivalent to 4. And if you would like to find the value of S alone, using cross multiplication, so S will be 0.25. Now, we would like to reach a level which is equivalent to 8,000. So we have to increase real income from 6,000 to 8,000. So the change is 2,000. So a change in Y is equivalent to 1 over S, a change in AB, or a change in G, which is autonomous one of the components of autonomous planned expenditure. So 2,000 equals 4 multiplied by change in G or change in AB. So 2,000 divided by 4, change in G will be 500. So in order to achieve a level of income which is equivalent to the desirable level, or 8,000, we have to increase G by 500. Or we have to decrease T, but by how much? As we said that if T increases by 1, AB will decrease by C, small c, multiplied by this one. So we can find now a new multiplier which is known as tax multiplier. Tax multiplier returning back to the original multiplier, which is 1 over S. So tax multiplier is 1 over S multiplied by small c, but in opposite direction, so it's negative small c. So we can write it as negative small c divided by S, or negative MBC, which is marginal propensity to consume, divided by MBS. So returning back to our example, we would like to decrease T by how much? As we know that S is equivalent to 0.25. So in this case, C will be the complementary value, which is 0.75. So we can calculate the value of tax multiplier as negative 0.75 divided by 0.25, which is 3. So if taxes will increase by 1, autonomous planned expenditure will decrease by 3. So autonomous planned expenditure will decrease by 3. So returning back to our example, change in Y is equivalent to a change in autonomous planned expenditure. But now we have to use the tax multiplier instead of the multiplier, which is negative C over S. So 2000 equals negative C over S, which is 3. A change in AB, or a change in autonomous tax revenue. So in this case, change in taxes should be 666.67 in opposite direction. So we have to decrease in order to be able to increase real income by 2000. We have to decrease autonomous tax revenue by 666.67. So how can monetary policy affect planned spending? So in part number 1, we talked about fiscal policy. Now we have to move to the second policy, which is the monetary policy. As we said, that the main tool that we are going to use is the interest rate. What's interest rate and what's the main function of interest rate? Interest rate helps the economy allocate saving among alternative uses. So as a consumer, you have to think about the interest rate, as this will encourage you to spend more or invest more or save money more. And also with respect to the investor, he has to think about interest rate, as this will help will affect his own decision whether to invest or not. So from this, we can expect that interest rate will affect two main components of the planned expenditure. As we said, that autonomous planned expenditure consists of autonomous consumption, planned investment, government expenditure, and net exports minus autonomous tax revenue. So as we said, that interest rate will affect autonomous consumption and planned investment. From the point of view of households, if interest rate increases, so they have to save more and spend less. So this is going to affect consumption negatively. And from the point of view of investors, if interest rate is going to increase, so the cost of investing is going to increase as well, so investment will decrease. So the relationship between interest rate and the two main components, autonomous consumption and planned investments, is a negative relationship. So if you would like to draw the relationship between autonomous planned expenditure and the interest rate, when you are going to talk about G, net experts, and autonomous tax revenue, it's gonna be like this. This is for the three main components: G, tax revenue, and net experts. But if you are going to add the two more components, the two additional components, which are autonomous consumption and planned investment, the relationship gonna be a negative relationship, and this will be the autonomous planned expenditure demand schedule. So the vertical line represents the three main components, and the negative slope line represents the two additional components. Autonomous planned demand schedule will shift to the left or to the right based on the three main components, any change in the three other components other than consumption and planned investment. From this, we would like to derive something known as IS. Okay, next time we are going to talk about what's IS curve and how to derive IS curve and solve a problem for this. Thank you and see you next week.